Not quite yet.
Morning. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your coverage all year. Really appreciate it. It's great working with you guys once again, and we'll just open it up to questions.
Neil, do you kind of feel a little vindication in being steadfast with the roster and kind of bringing the team back intact, sticking at the core?
Yeah. Vindication's a word, proud is a word. I think we did. I think we went through a little bit of a storm last year, the way things ended. And we had to be resolute, in our commitment to the core of the roster and the coaching staff and everything else. And, we did our due diligence to kind of see what went wrong. And once we reconciled that, the errors that I committed and the errors that, basically resulted in the sweep were fixable, we were content to kind of move forward with the group. And I do think there's some vindication with showing that kind of a consistency that model works.
Yeah, how would you describe the path before you as far as this summer and altering the roster?
So we're going to go from consistency in the Western Conference Finals to have to alter the roster? Look, we have some guys that have some, contract status that'll have to be dealt with. You guys are aware. Some of the local guys, we did a little cap seminar as far as what rights we have to certain free agents on our roster. But, I guess the one thing I would say, Jason, is I think if this year proved anything with the acquisitions of Rodney and Ennis, right, in February, that roster building is a fluid process. Everyone wants everything to be done on July 1st at midnight. It doesn't necessarily work that way. We had opportunities to add quality guys like Seth, in free agency with limited tools. We went into the season, counting on internal development, but we remained opportunistic. And like I said, who would have projected in July that we would end up with two starting quality players at positions of need at the trade deadline and in the buyout market, which we've never utilized before. We've just never had that opportunity before. So I think that's the one thing. When you're limited in terms of the available tools at your disposal, you've got to take more of a longer view. It's not as simple as having a max cap slot and going after one guy or two guys. There's trades, there's playing in the margins, there's, developing your own guys. So I think a lot of the work gets done behind the scenes until the acquisition happens. And I think, after 7 years, it's got to be taken on faith a little bit that when an opportunity comes to continue to build the roster so we can move forward, we're going to do it.
Neil, there was a report from Yahoo today that basically you guys are expected to come to agreement with Dame about a supermax. In your mind, is it pretty open and shut that July 1st you guys are going to put that on the table for him and he's going to sign it?
I honestly, I don't read Yahoo, so I have no idea about the report. I'm being honest. I have no idea what you're even talking about. What are you talking about?
Basically that you guys are expected to come to an agreement with Dame about the supermax.
Well, I'm not going to talk about contract terms, but clearly, I don't think anybody in this room is surprised about how integral Damian is to the future of the team. So, but I'm not going to discuss contract terms. As you know, we don't even know if he's eligible for the supermax for another 2 days. You can roll your eyes. We don't, do we? If we do, let Adam know, because I think he'll be a little bit upset that we're putting the cart before the horse. But let's at least see what he's eligible for first. And then clearly, Damian is probably the biggest off-season priority.
Neil, kind of along those lines, can you speak to the job that Terry did, and is there any plans to extend him?
He has already been extended.
When did that happen?
About 20 minutes ago.
Length of the contract?
No, the contract length will be in the formal release. I just want to at least get you guys the information based on the fact we've reached an agreement.
Terry, your thoughts?
There you go. Now, by the way, the only reason I did this was to shift the focus onto him.
No, obviously I'm pleased. I'm pleased with the season. I'm pleased that we came to an agreement. I'm very happy here. I'm happy with the team. This year was probably the most enjoyable year as a head coach as far as the group of guys that we had. And, personally, we've kind of gone through peaks and valleys over my tenure, and this is another peak. So I couldn't be more happy that things have turned out the way they have personally and for the team.
Specifically, what do you like about Terry leading this group?
We win every year. you know,
Winning is important. We can talk culture all you want. You got to win.
So, I mean, look, it's year 7, 6 straight playoff appearances, right? 3 trips to the second round, 1 to the conference finals, 2 division titles. I mean, and again, we still have one of the youngest rosters in the league. Our young players develop. There's a great partnership, and you do have to win. But I think, we saw this in the past. I mean, friends of Terry's and mine that won, and because of extenuating circumstances that went beyond the win-loss record, guys weren't retained. So it goes beyond just wins and losses. It's alignment, it's partnership, it's knowing the organization is moving forward. It's a commitment to a longer-term view that there are priorities beyond just the next game. And I think one of the things, I'm most proud of the coaching staff, wins and losses, that happens. I mean, there's injuries, there's guys that perform at a high level, guys have down years. Everyone that's come through here has gotten better. And at heart, you're hiring a coach to be a teacher. And, as we see the league get younger and younger, there's such a value placed, especially in a market like Portland, where we can't always buy our way out of trouble, on developing our young players and finding reclamation projects and developing them. And I think when you look across the league, I don't know if anybody's had as much success as this staff of second-round picks panning out, guys that have flamed out elsewhere becoming contributing and integral players. And it is a culture and it's a style of play. And that consistency, when you asked, Jason, a little bit about going forward, that's important. I don't know that if we didn't have this consistency here, that we get Rodney Hood to give up his bird rights, that we get Enes Kanter to come in a buyout, and then once they came, that they would flourish. So I think the consistency that we have in terms of the kind of players that we acquire, the discipline that we have to know who will and won't succeed here, and entrusting the coaching staff that when we acquire guys that fit what we do on and off the court, they're going to be successful and their abilities are going to be maximized.
His staff, Neil, contract situation.
Well, look, I think you see the value of that, one, in the player development. You see how engaged the players are that may not even be in the rotation. And the fact that, look, you've got David Vanterpool and Nate Tibbetts consistently getting head coaching interviews, and one or both are eventually, when the right fit comes, are going to be head coaches in this league. We get great contributions from Dale Osborne, Jim Moran, John McCullough, John Yim. So I think everybody brings a different skill set to it. But what I look for is engagement. One of the things in the NBA, players give you permission to coach them. And I've never seen a player come through here that was reluctant to be coached by any of the guys on our staff. And that's why they've had an opportunity to get better.
Have they been extended as well?
Not yet. We still have guys that are interviewing for head coaching jobs. So when that process plays out, we'll address the assistants.
Terry, you hope to bring back the staff intact, though?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean, all the things Neil just said about our staff, it is a group effort, and everything that they do to be part of it and make our team better. So yeah, I hope everybody's back in a way, but like you said, David and Nate have been interviewing, so for me at this stage of my career, if I can have a coaching tree, that would be pretty cool too.
Hey, Coach, what made this a special group for you to coach this season? Can you put your finger on that?
Well, it's top to bottom. They're just all good guys, and for the most part, it's been like that every year that I've been here. But there was just, I think, having gone through what we went through last year in the playoffs, there was a determination throughout the year. There was a belief throughout the year, but they got along. There was rarely, if ever, was there any pushback on anything that we wanted to do. Coming into the gym every day, guys were on time. They're coachable. They had a good time. Jason wrote a good article today about just different things that happened throughout the year that made it memorable. And there was no drama. You hate to lose a game, but everybody gets a little disappointed when there's a rough patch, but you get through it. And it's just kind of an unwavering consistency about our demeanor every game, every practice, whatever.
Neil, a couple players mentioned the ownership situation and kind of roped that in with how things were a little unsettled heading into the summer. Can you address where things stand with that? And
You mean last summer or this summer?
this summer,
Nothing's unsettled.
from an ownership standpoint?
Nothing. Jody's our owner. She's been fantastic in terms of her engagement. I mean, I know you guys have seen her at games. She's addressed the team when we've asked her to, after each series. I mean, she was really emotional after the OKC series. I think that was the kind of validation, knowing, how much Paul believed in the core of this group, but wanted to make sure we were on the right track and to see it come to fruition. And then last night, I think at a time when we were all a little bit broken, look, it's hard. The narrative will be sweet, but we had double-digit leads in 3 of the 4 games. I mean, we had leads in the fourth quarter, but that's why they've been to 5 straight finals, and they're the 3-time defending champion. I mean, they can do it for 48 minutes every single night when they need to, and it's something we're going to have to learn, going forward. That you just can't have lapses against a team like that. But Jody stepped up and spoke to the team in a way that I think resonated with everybody and struck a chord with all the players and staff, and everyone was there, that, she has our back. She has a vision for the franchise. She believes in the group. She cares about the players, as much the magnitude of what she has had to take on in, after our loss of Paul. But the fact that at a time when we needed, ownership to show solidarity with front office and coaching staff and business division, she was there for us. And, as evidenced by today, Joe, I mean, I had kind of softened the beach a little bit throughout the process with Jody, but, immediately I made a recommendation to Jody about Terry, and she signed off on it right away. And that's what you want. You want decisive decisions, and you want someone that's looking out for the best interests of the organization as a leader. And that's what she's been since she's taken over last October.
Was this the most emotional ride for you? I mean, just going back to when Paul passed away, to the ups and downs of this season?
Yeah, losing Paul was really hard. There's a void. And I think the hardest thing, had we gotten swept in the first round, I don't know if I'd be saying that. But, the fact that Paul cares so much about this team and the league and to win, and there was always something in each series, that I looked at, what it meant to beat OKC. And then, he and Stan Kroenke were good friends and partners in the NFL as well, and to play Denver in, to 7 games, and, then to play the defending champs, and then to see how different guys that he believed in at different points in their career step up. It was hard for me to watch and have him miss that. It really was. It was difficult. But I would actually say that from an emotional standpoint, the OKC series was the most emotional because it was validation and it was vindication for keeping the group together. We were an underdog, going into that. And, everybody bet against us, and, we came out in 5 games, and Dame had a historic performance and probably what'll go down as one of the most iconic moments in playoff history. So that was really emotional for us, because it proved that last year's playoffs were the fluke, not last year's regular season.
Terry, given what Meyers showed you in these last 2 games, does it change the way you look at him, the way he fits in moving forward? You don't have Nurkic probably to start the season next year. Where does he fit in?
Well, we don't know what the roster is. I mean, I think that's a question better asked in September than right now. But I couldn't be more pleased and happy for Meyers and what he did the last 2 games. Everybody here knows his career and the ups and downs of his career, and to do it on that stage was very rewarding for him and for me. But going forward, he showed that he can play, and consistency is the thing that we all want from players, and it's what players want. So I think more than anything else, it it gives him a leg up going into next season.
Terry, you sometimes hear players talk about wanting to be the best Blazer ever. With the extension and kind of with your place in the organization now, do you consider your place among the coaches in Trailblazers history? And if so, how?
Dr. Jack's a Hall of Famer. Rick Adelman will be in the Hall of Fame. So I'm not even going to touch those two guys. I mean, they're two of my idols, and so I'll never be at that level. You know, whatever the numbers are, those guys did it here, and they did it multiple places. So I don't even presume to be in that category.
But you're also a guy who, with the players, you talk a lot about not wanting to limit them and what they can and can't do. So why
They're
would you do
young.
that for-
They're
They're not
young.
63.
They're 61. 61. Yeah, they have a lot of time ahead of them. You know, my horizon's dimming a little bit.
You got an extension today, right?
Yeah, I did. No, but to answer your question, there have been a lot of great coaches here, but I mean, no one's going to touch Coach Adelman and Coach Ramsey. I mean, that's just a fact.
Kind of for each of you, but Terry, you think back, you didn't know if you were going to get another shot at a head coaching job. And so do you reflect now that you are here and you're going to be here for however many years? And then Neil, can you kind of speak to what you saw from him 7 years ago and how you've seen him grow into what he is now?
So George we were in Seattle for 6 years, and I considered that a lifetime. And I was in Milwaukee for 4, and I thought that was a good run. And I was in Dallas for 4 years, and that was a good run. And to be honest, often in the last few years, I can't believe it's been 5 years, can't believe it's been 6 years, can't believe it's been 7 years. I mean, it's to have that kind of longevity with one franchise is something I had never imagined. I was extremely thankful to get the job here in the first place. When I've said before, I never thought I was going to get another opportunity, and Neil plucked me out and gave me the opportunity. And to be here 7 years later is remarkable. And I have a lot of gratitude for everybody that's helped make that possible.
It's like where you've seen him grow from 7 years ago and what you saw 7 years ago.
It's hard for me to talk about him growing because I'm so much younger than he is. So, but
Yeah, all that great.
that's from these guys. Jason, I think it was interesting. When we were going through the process, right? What we valued. The model that we were kind of looking at were the really successful small markets. And that's what we're trying to build. And you look at Utah with Coach Sloan, and Kevin O'Connor and those guys were there. And, Coach Popovich, in San Antonio. And the guys that really did have long runs, you had to build something that took time. It wasn't a quick fix. So, I think from a confidence standpoint, I think Terry carries himself now as a coach that is consistently in the playoffs, not a head coach that had to go back to being an assistant that was getting another chance. He doesn't have anything to prove to anybody, right? I mean, I think Terry's one of the top coaches in the league, and when you have that, you don't lose that. It's like a player, to get back to your point. When you have a Damian Lillard, a CJ McCollum, a Yusuf Nurkic, you don't let those guys leave, right? I mean, because it's hard to find greatness. And I think that's the way this partnership has been with Terry, has been, we identified a certain skill set and a sensibility and a like-mindedness and an alignment when we hired him. Now, again, who would think that, we would be on the kind of run we've been on, especially with multiple iterations of the roster. This isn't like the normal, hey, it's Stockton, Malone, and Hornacek, and that's it for the run. I mean, we basically had to rebuild an entire roster and start anew, other than Dame, 4 years ago. And we've come out of it better off than we were at that point. So, I mean, the juggling act, I think what's more impressive than the longevity for Terry has been the fact that, we inherited 3 vets and handed them a rookie point guard and, kind of piecemeal the roster together and went on a run and won 54 games and, got to the second round for the first time, since 99, 2000. And then we had to really start all over again, 2 years after that. And now we are 4 years later and we're doing it again. So I think the trust that comes with knowing that Terry and I know what works for one another is the kind of consistency we want, and we can capitalize on it. I know what kind of players he likes. I know what kind of players are going to flourish in our system. He trusts me to go find them. And the reclamation project guys, he believes that we're going to identify talent that we just need to cultivate. And we're going to have to take some risks at times, but we have the infrastructure now and the consistency to see that pay off.
Question for both of you guys. What's a realistic expectation for next season?
Seriously?
Because that's what everybody wants to know.
You always try and get better, don't you? Well, we'll try and get better. You don't put it in terms of advancing in the playoffs, or you want to win as many games as you can. You want to advance as much as you can, but the whole goal is to be better. We're a better team this year than we were last year, so we'll see what the roster is in September and go from there. But that's always the goal, is somehow get better.
I agree. I mean, look, I think if you would have told us in September that we were going to be able to start the season with Rodney and Ennis, coming off our bench, then we probably would have been saying, hey, top 3 seed, and we're going to be in the Western Conference Finals, and that's our goal, and that's a reasonable expectation. At the time, I don't know that was, I think that was the goal, but I don't know that that was the expectation. Certainly not with our friends at Westgate. They didn't have us out there. But I will say this, the one thing that I know is consistent every year with this team is they will be better than everybody thinks they are. And there is no way to quantify, okay, and that's why they're always wrong on their over-unders with us. There is no way to quantify character, chemistry, the coaching, the culture, all those intangibles that make for a winning organization that can't be put into some algorithm. And that's why they miss on us all the time. And I think that is what will remain consistent. And I think whatever people think coming out of July when they write their off-season grades, they will be wrong again next year. And our ceiling will be higher than what some of the pundits believe it to be.
Just because they are such a hot commodity, can you speak to the strengths of both Nate and David?
They're both excellent teachers, and I really don't like to differentiate them. But they're great teachers. They love to be in the gym. They get the respect of the players. They've helped develop their various players over the course of time. They think the game like a head coach. During timeouts, during the game, they offer suggestions. A lot of times they're suggesting things that I'm about to do. They are diligent workers as far as whether it's on the court or watching video or spending time with players. I think they both develop strong relationships with all our players. Nate has been a head coach in the minor leagues. David has not. I think they have other strengths that. One of the things I like personally for them on my staff is they complement each other with their strengths. But as I said, they're both. Well, Neil said they're both ready to be head coaches. It's just whenever that opportunity comes, and that's what's exciting. But they, to me, they are both what you're looking for in a head coach. From a leadership standpoint, relationship standpoint, communication, they're both very good communicators. So, I'd like to be effusive in my praise of them both.
And I know you're all inclusive, but David mostly handles defense and Nate offense. Is that correct?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, they do. They primarily look at, Nate does all the offensive edits and focuses on that. But one of the things, and because I was in that position in Dallas, is that I respect both their opinions on both sides of the ball. And I don't like them to be pigeonholed in one area, because I think And matter of fact, I thought about switching them just because I think it would be good for them to switch, and they both would do a good job in it. So I have thought about that going forward, but you know, it's like Dwayne and I was offense and Dwayne was defense, but I think we both kind of knew the other side of the ball as well.
Meyers said something earlier about how he thinks that in other organizations, after a couple of early playoff exits in a row, something would have been blown up and they would have made big changes. What was it that made you so determined to just ride it out with this group and hope that they can get to where you want them to go without making any huge changes?
Well, I think contextually, one, this narrative of all these playoff blowouts, I don't know where it comes from. I mean,
We only lost once in the first round last year. 2 years ago was second round. Right, in the second round.
No. The 16 was when you beat the Clippers and then lost in the second
Okay.
round.
Oh, you're right.
17 was Warriors.
Okay,
right, that was right.
you're right.
So, and if I remember correctly, they swept the entire Western
I've
Conference.
been here too long. Their years are running together.
Right? Didn't they? I'm trying to remember if that's the year or not. But I mean, there was a year where the Warriors won all 3 series in the Western Conference 4-0. So
Yeah, they
you
lost
know,
one game the whole playoff run.
yeah. So like let's take that. I get the narrative becomes very easy. 10 straight playoff losses and blah, blah. Yes, they were to the Warriors, who were sweeping everybody. So look, last year, absolutely, that was a very good team. I don't know why everybody's looking at this like this was some huge upset when they won 3 fewer games than us during the regular season. They have 2 perennial All-Stars. They made a huge acquisition at the trade deadline. They were really good. They beat us. 3 of the 4 games were 1-possession games under 2 minutes. So I think that gets a little bit overstated. But I think what Meyers' point, the other thing is the age. This was not an old team, right, that was ready to fall off a cliff and we were trying to hang on by a thread. We still had one of the youngest rosters in the league. I think we were the youngest roster in the playoffs last year. So I think part of it was we knew there was internal development left among our guys. Dame was resolute in his opinion, which was when you come out of something like this, you're going to come out of it stronger. And I think you can look at it 2 ways. You can bemoan the failure of that playoff series after a 49-win season, or you can use it to know where the pitfalls were. And, one of the things Dame said to me after we beat Denver, and he said, I told everybody we were coming to the Western Conference Finals, and he said, I kept telling everybody, when you go through something like we went through last year and everything we had to live with, right, in the wake of that, you come out of it stronger and you don't let it happen again. And that's one of the things we're really blessed to have is to have a voice like that in that locker room. Because one of the things I think that's understated, from Meyers' perspective is if there had been a lot of backbiting and grousing and finger pointing in that locker room, right, in that ecosystem, we maybe don't come out of it, right? We don't come out of it saying we're keeping this group together. You know what I mean? Like if there had been people if it had been started to fracture and you started getting different agendas, and we never did. I mean, and a lot of that is a testament to Dame's leadership that it galvanized that group. And that's why we were very judicious about who we brought in. And if you notice, the model kind of stayed the same, right? Seth Curry had been out for a year, had something to prove. Trade deadline, right? Rodney had gone through a really difficult time in the playoffs on an individual basis on their trip to the finals the year before in Cleveland. They were in a directional shift, right, when we got him. Confidence wasn't that high. Ennis, right, goes from going to the finals with OKC to, he's playing on another team with a directional shift in terms of what their values were, and he gets new life. So, if you look at it, what we added to our group were like-minded guys that were no different, right? It's kind of the same situation we got Nurkic when we acquired him. And, the undervalued guys like Farouk and Harkless when we got them. And that's kind of what our model is becoming. You know what I mean? Like, is that we're becoming a place where, I think you've probably seen the comments Ennis has had about the organization and Rodney and, how much it's meant to them, the experience they had here. Those are the guys we try to identify. Those are the value signings and the value acquisitions that we think can get back to where they were in terms of potential as players. So I think that's one of the things that's getting lost in this. It wasn't just me making recommendations to Paul believing in the group, Paul believing in Terry, having the support of Bert Cole to understand that, hey, we're not going to overlook and overreact to a playoff loss after the kind of regular season we had, but what do we need to do with the roster and our approach to ensure that when we get to the playoffs, we're ready to make a run and compete, that it's not just regular season success. But I think part of that is that locker room never lost faith. And that's a testament to Dame and it's a testament to CJ that they really believed in the group of guys. They knew where we needed extra support. But had they fractured and gone off the reservation, I don't know that we could have pulled it back in. And I think that's a fair question.
Yeah, what's the plan for Nurk this summer?
He's got, Kendra's doing an unbelievable job, with Jess and the group. She worked with him throughout the playoff run. It's continued rehab for him. We'll keep trying to hit all these benchmarks. He's in a great spirit now. I think you guys have seen him. I think it was a tough month or so for him, being away from the team, but he's making great progress. I mean, the guys that I've had that have come back during the playoffs from my staff can't believe where he is relative to what they saw only 4 weeks ago. But look, he is a core piece to this roster. He's a foundational piece going forward, and we're gonna drive him, but knowing we are going to do what's best for Nurk on a long-term basis in terms of his recovery and his timeline.
There is no timeline, no timetable for it.
Not right now. I mean, there are benchmarks, Kevin, in terms of what he, when he needs to accelerate, when he would get back on the court, when he would start, doing basketball-related activities. But right now, like I said, we're in the strengthening mode, right? Getting his functional movements better. And like I said, we'll have updates for you guys throughout the offseason whenever he meets those benchmarks and we adjust the timeline.
Has he had a schedule? I mean, just seeing him walk around like that, it's kind of something that everybody talks about.
I think it's subjective. I mean, I think, like Terry said, there's peaks and valleys for teams. There are going to be peaks and valleys. I mean, he's going to hit some roadblocks at times in terms of when the next one comes. Thankfully, so far to date, he's on a great trajectory in terms of return to play. But, we're going to he's only 24 years old. So, like I said, he's a foundational piece going forward. He's on a long-term deal. And, we're not going to sacrifice anything in his recovery and his PT just to get him on the court faster.
Can you give us a general idea when basketball-related activities?
I don't know right now. I mean, we've just, like I said, we've been focused on this is the first step, right? Getting him back up and moving, getting the symmetry back between both legs. And look, I mean, when we're doing draft workouts or during free agency, we'll all get together and if we have an update, we'll let you guys know.
Since you mentioned draft workouts, since the team has obviously played later than they have typically, and I know the staffing is different, but where are you guys at in terms of your draft preparation?
What time is it? Because I don't have a watch.
2:15.
2:15.
I'm on a 7:30 flight to Phoenix for the first Agent Pro Day. So that's the first step. The Agent Pro Days now have become commonplace. I mean, every single one has one. So this week is Phoenix Wednesday, New York Thursday, Chicago Friday, Vegas Monday, LA Tuesday, Calabasas Wednesday, and then we're back again. So, the agents are controlling basically the post-Chicago pre-draft combine timeline, right, until they've all gotten their pro days in. So once they've concluded, I mean, I think we might have the early stages of workout for May 31st, but it isn't confirmed yet. I wouldn't anticipate a schedule packed with them, Casey. We've got the 25th pick in the draft. We don't have a second rounder. The scope is going to be fairly narrow in terms of the number of guys we bring in. So I wouldn't expect visits. Looking at the gap between when we get back, from the Agent Pro Days, the draft is only on the 20th. And most of the first rounders leave on the 16th, right, to go to New York. So it's a really condensed timeline. So agents are being more selective with where they're sending guys, which is why we've got to attend all their pro days. So I would anticipate maybe 3-4 workouts in its entirety. And hopefully out of that group, we're hitting all the guys that are our target prospects.
Anfernee, Scal, and Gary, and Summerlee, those would be the guys off your team.
We've got to try and repeat, man.
Speaking of Anfernee, can you speak to his potential, what you've seen from him this year, and
he makes the game look easy. I think this was a really good year for him and Gary to see what a good team looks like, what a good team, how they work. They were both very good workers. He's got excellent offensive instincts as far as being able to kind of glide through. He can play point guard in two positions. A lot of times when he was getting in games, he was playing point guard. I think that was a good experience for him. He's gotten stronger. I really don't like projecting out like what you can expect from him, but I think this is a big summer for both him and Gary as far as the work that they put in June, July, August, and we'll see what the roster looks like. But I think anybody who watched him play this year was probably encouraged by what they saw, whether it was in pregame workouts, practice. You guys saw glimpses of him. I think it's exciting about the type of player that he can become.
The sack
Gary,
game.
this was
The sack game.
this was a long haul for your players, having not gone this far into a season, obviously, before. Draymond Green talked a lot about one of the games, about load management and how important he thought it was for them. Moving forward, do you guys give consideration to that? Would you think about that?
Well, we thought about it this year. Taking games off is one thing. I thought we did a good job of managing players' load. If you look at Dame and CJ's minutes over the course of the year, Dame's minutes have gone down, I think, almost every year. So this whole thing with load management, we are very, with all the stuff that we have back in H&P, we're very aware of what every player, what their load is, and what the focus should be as far as their load management. But load management means more than just giving them a game off.
Or no more.
Terry, did you speak to Jody at all after have you spoken with her since you signed the extension?
No.
How long is the extension?
The length will be in the press release. It's a few years, though.
Okay, we'll wrap it up there.
All right,
Thanks,
guys,
everybody.
thank you.